The space station called Horizon's Edge floated in the darkness between stars. It was a massive thing, built from metal and glass, spinning slowly in the void. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds came here every day. They came to trade, to talk, and sometimes to fight. Park Tai-ho guided his small cargo ship toward the docking bay. His hands moved over the controls with the ease of someone who had done this 1,000 times before. The ship was old, but reliable. He had named it the Quiet Wind. It had carried him across the galaxy for 7 years now. Tai-ho was 32 years old. He had black hair cut short and a face that rarely showed much emotion. There were scars on his hands and arms, old ones that had faded to thin white lines. He did not talk about where they came from. He did not talk much at all. The docking clamps locked onto his ship with a heavy clunk. Tai-ho shut down the engines and sat in the pilot's chair for a moment, looking out at the station through his window. Lights blinked everywhere. Ships of all sizes moved in and out. Aliens of every shape walked through the transparent tubes that connected different parts of the station. He needed repairs. The Quiet Wind had developed a problem with its cooling system, and he needed parts that were hard to find. Horizon's Edge was one of the few places in this sector where he could get them. Tai-ho stood up, stretched his back, and grabbed his jacket. It was a simple brown jacket, worn at the edges. He put it on and walked to the airlock. The station's air smelled like metal and recycled oxygen. It also smelled like food from a dozen different worlds, spices and meats and things he could not identify. The corridors were crowded with beings of all kinds. Some were tall, some were short. Some had scales, some had fur. Some had skin and colors that did not exist on Earth. Tai-ho walked past them all without really looking. He had been traveling among aliens for years now. The wonder had faded long ago. Now, they were just people to him, different on the outside, but not so different where it mattered. He found a repair shop first. The owner was a creature with 6 legs and 2 arms, covered in hard brown shell. Tai-ho explained what he needed. The creature made a clicking sound with its mouth. It's cooling coils for a Mark 7 engine, it said. I have them, but they will take 2 days to install. Tai-ho nodded. 2 days was fine. He had no schedule to keep. He paid the deposit and left. Now he needed food, and maybe a place to sleep. The station had hotels, but they were expensive. Tai-ho preferred to sleep on his ship when he could. But food was another matter. His supplies were low. He was tired of eating the same protein bars every day. He found the common hall near the center of the station. It was a large open space with a high ceiling. Tables and chairs filled the floor, and beings of all kinds sat eating and drinking and talking. Along one wall, vendors sold food from their carts and stalls. Along another wall, there was something else. A fighting ring. Tai-ho stopped walking and looked at it. The ring was raised off the floor, surrounded by a low barrier. Right now, 2 aliens were circling each other inside. One was covered in green scales. The other had thick gray skin like stone. A crowd had gathered to watch. Fighting rings were common on stations like this. Some species valued combat above all else. They fought for honor, for entertainment, for the simple joy of testing themselves against others. It was not to the death usually. Just until one fighter could not continue or chose to yield, Tai-ho watched for a moment. The green one was faster. The gray one was stronger. In the end, the gray one grabbed the green one and threw it out of the ring. The crowd cheered and groaned, depending on who they had bet on. Tai-ho turned away and went to find food. He bought a bowl of noodles from a vendor. It looked almost human except for the extra pair of eyes. The noodles were good, hot and filling. He found an empty table in a quiet corner and sat down to eat. He did not notice the tall woman watching him from across the room. Venna.
Ah.
Solroth stood near the fighting ring with her arms crossed. All 4 of them. She was Kelthari, one of the warrior species that dominated this part of the galaxy. Her skin was silver blue, smooth and hard like polished metal. She stood 7 feet tall, with long limbs built for speed and power. Her eyes were large and dark. Right now they were focused on the human sitting alone in the corner. Venna had been on this station for 3 years. She worked as a combat instructor, teaching young warriors from various species how to fight. She also provided security when important guests visited. It was good work. It let her stay sharp. She had seen humans before, many times. They came through the station regularly, trading goods, fixing their ships, passing through on their way to somewhere else. She had never been impressed by them. They were small. Smaller than Kelthari, smaller than most species that considered themselves fighters. They had no claws, no natural armor, no venom or special abilities. Their skin was soft and easy to cut. Their bones broke easily. By all logic, they should have been prey animals, hiding at the bottom of some food chain on their little blue planet, but that was not what had happened. Somehow, humans had spread across the galaxy. Somehow, they had built ships and weapons and colonies on distant worlds. Somehow they had survived encounters with species that should have destroyed them. Venna had heard stories. All Kelthari had. Stories of humans doing impossible things. A human soldier holding a position alone against 50 enemies. A human crew surviving for months on a damaged ship with no food. A human fighter defeating warriors. Twice his size through tricks and stubbornness, she did not believe most of these stories. They had to be exaggerated. Humans were good at telling stories about themselves. That was probably their only real skill. The human in the corner did not look special. He ate his noodles quietly, looking at nothing. His body was lean but not muscular. His face was calm, almost bored. He did not carry any weapons that she could see. Just another human. Just another soft little creature passing through. "You were staring at that human," said a voice beside her. Venna looked down. Her student Rothan had approached. He was young for a Kelthari, only 40 years old, still learning the ways of combat. His silver-blue skin was lighter than hers, and he had not yet earned any of his warrior marks. "I am thinking," Venna said. "About what?" "About whether the stories are true?" Rothan made a sound of confusion. "What stories?" "The stories about humans. About how dangerous they are." Rothan looked at the human and laughed. "Him? Dangerous? He looks like he would fall over if I pushed him." Venna did not laugh. She was still watching. The human had finished his food. He sat there now, doing nothing, looking at nothing. Completely relaxed. Completely unaware? Or was he? Something made Venna curious. She could not say what. Maybe it was the way he sat, balanced and centered, even though he seemed to be resting. Maybe it was the scars she could see on his hands. Maybe it was the way his eyes moved, just slightly. Taking in the room without seeming to look at anything, she made a decision. "Wait here," she told Rothan. She walked across the common hall, moving between tables and around other beings. The human did not look up as she approached. He did not react at all until she pulled out the chair across from him and sat down. Then he looked at her. His eyes were dark brown, calm and steady. He did not seem surprised. He did not seem afraid, Venna said. "I have a question for you." The human looked at her for a long moment. Then he picked up his cup and took a drink. "Okay," he said. Ask Venna leaned forward in her chair. The human across from her did not lean back. He just sat there, holding his cup, waiting for her to speak. His calmness was strange. Most beings became nervous when a Kelthari warrior sat down uninvited at their table. This one did not seem to care. "I have heard stories about your kind," Venna said. "Stories about humans in combat. They say you are more dangerous than you look." The human took another drink from his cup. "People say a lot of things. Are the stories true?" He shrugged. "I do not know what stories you heard." Venna felt a small spark of irritation. She was not used to being answered with such little care. Stories of humans defeating warriors from stronger species. Stories of your soldiers fighting against impossible odds and winning. Stories of your kind being difficult to kill. The human set his cup down. For a moment, something moved behind his eyes. Then it was gone. "Humans get lucky sometimes," he said. "That is all. Lucky." Venna repeated the word like it left a bad taste in her mouth. "You call it luck? What would you call it?" "I would call it lies. Stories made bigger than they really were." She leaned back in her chair, crossing two of her arms while the other two rested on the table. I think humans are good at talking, good at making themselves sound important. But when it comes to real fighting, I think you are nothing special. The human looked at her. His face showed nothing. Maybe you were right. This was not the response Venna expected. She had expected him to defend his species. She had expected pride, anger, arguments. Instead, he just accepted her insult like it meant nothing. Among the Kalthari, such behavior was considered false. When someone attacked your honor, you were supposed to defend it. To pretend you did not care was seen as a kind of lie, a trick to hide weakness. You do not argue, Venna said. I have cargo to deliver. I do not have time for arguments. Your cargo can wait. I am asking you a simple question. Venna's voice grew harder. Are humans truly warriors? Or are you just small, soft things that got lucky enough to find space travel before something ate you? The human sighed. It was a small sound, tired rather than angry. What do you want from me? Venna smiled. Finally, she was getting somewhere. I want proof. I want to see for myself if there is anything real behind those stories. She pointed toward the fighting ring across the hall. Fight me. A simple sparring match. No weapons, no killing blows. First one to yield loses. The human followed her pointing finger with his eyes. He looked at the ring, then looked back at her. No. 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 I am not a fighter. I am a cargo pilot. I move boxes from one place to another. I do not fight for entertainment. Venna felt the irritation grow into real anger. You refuse a challenge? I refuse to waste my time. The human stood up from the table. Thank you for the conversation. Have a good day. He turned and started to walk away. Venna stood up quickly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. The sound made nearby beings look over. You walk away from me? She called out. You refuse a fair challenge and then turn your back? The human stopped walking but did not turn around. I refused politely. There is nothing unfair about that. Among my people, refusing combat is the act of a coward. Now he turned. His face was still calm, but his eyes had changed somehow. They were harder now, focused. Among my people, fighting without a good reason is the act of a fool. The common hall had grown quiet. Beings at nearby tables were watching now. Venna could feel their eyes on her. Some were Kelthari, members of her own species. They had heard the human call their way foolish. Their faces showed anger. Venna walked toward the human until she stood only an arm's length away. She was much taller than him. She looked down at his face. You think our ways are foolish? I think fighting someone for no reason when I have work to do is foolish. I did not say anything about your people. But you will not fight. I will not fight. Rothan appeared beside Venna, his young face twisted with anger. He had heard everything. This human insults us. He calls us fools and then hides behind words. I did not call anyone a fool, the human said. His voice was still calm. I said I would be a fool to fight without reason. Those are different things. Rothan stepped forward, pushing his chest out. I will give you a reason. Before Venna could stop him, Rothan shoved the human with all four hands. The push was hard, meant to send the human flying backward, but the human did not fly backward. He moved with the push, stepping back smoothly, absorbing the force. His feet shifted, his body turned slightly, and when he stopped moving, he was perfectly balanced again. It happened so fast and so smoothly that Rothan's hands found only empty air. After the first contact, the human looked at Rothan. Something had definitely changed in his eyes now. They were cold, like stone, like deep water. Do not do that again, the human said quietly. Rothan made a sound of anger and reached for the human's shoulder. The human did not block the grab. He simply was not there anymore. He had moved just a small step, but Rothan's hand closed on nothing. I said, do not. Rothan pulled back, confused and embarrassed. He looked at Venna for guidance. Venna was watching the human carefully now. The way he moved, the way he stood, the way his weight was balanced, these were not the signs of a simple cargo pilot. She had trained warriors for decades. She knew what a fighter's body looked like, even when it was trying to hide. "What? You have training," she said. It was not a question. The human said nothing. "You move like someone who has been in combat. Real combat, not just sparring." Venice smiled again, but this time there was respect mixed with the challenge. The stories might have some truth after all. "I am a cargo pilot," the human repeated. But his voice was different now. Harder, and prove it. "If you have no skill, the fight will be short. You will yield, and we will all know the truth about humans. No shame in losing to a Kelthari warrior." Venice spread her forearms wide. "But if the stories are true, if there is something special hiding inside that small body, then show me. Show all of us." She gestured at the crowd that had gathered. Dozens of beings were watching now. Some were whispering to each other. Some were already pulling out devices to record what might happen next. "One match," Venice said. "One round. No weapons. No death. Just two warriors testing themselves. After that, you can go back to your cargo, and I will never bother you again." The human looked at the crowd. He looked at Rothan, who was still angry and embarrassed. He looked at Venna. "If I win," he said slowly, "you leave me alone. No more questions about humans. No more challenges." "Agreed." "And your student apologizes for pushing me?" Rothan made an angry noise, but Venna silenced him with a look. "Agreed," she said. The human was quiet for a long moment. Venna could see him thinking, weighing his options. She expected him to find another excuse, another way to avoid the fight. Instead, he nodded once. "Fine," he said. "One round. No grudges after." The crowd erupted in noise. Beings shouted and cheered and called out bets to each other. Money and goods began changing hands as people wagered on the outcome. Venna smiled wide, showing her teeth. "You have made a brave choice, human. What is your name?" "Park Taiho." "Taiho." She tested the name. "I am Venna Solrath. I look forward to teaching you what Kelthari warriors are capable of." Taiho looked at her with those calm, cold eyes. "And I look forward to this being over." He walked toward the fighting ring. The crowd parted to let him through. Venna watched him go, watched the way he moved, watched the way his shoulders sat, relaxed but ready. She had wanted proof. She was about to get it. One way or another, she was about to learn the truth about humans. She just did not know yet which truth she would find. Rothan stepped close to her. "You will destroy him," he said confidently. "He is small and weak. This will be over in seconds." Venna did not answer. She was still watching Taiho as he climbed into the ring and stood waiting. Something about the way he waited made her feel the smallest touch of doubt. It was gone quickly, pushed away by pride and confidence. She was Venna Solrath, master of combat, undefeated in 47 matches. But the doubt had been there. And deep down, in a place she would not admit to, she wondered if she had just made a terrible mistake. The fighting ring was simple. A raised platform, 3 feet off the ground, surrounded by a low barrier. The floor was covered in a material that was hard, but not too hard, designed to absorb falls without causing serious injury. Taiho stood on one side of the ring. He had removed his brown jacket and placed it outside the barrier. Underneath, he wore a simple gray shirt that showed his arms clearly. The crowd could see the scars now, thin white lines crossing his forearms and the backs of his hands. Old wounds. Long healed. Some beings in the crowd pointed at the scars and whispered to each other. Venna climbed into the ring on the other side. She did not need to remove any clothing. Kelthari warriors wore little, just a simple wrap around their bodies that left their limbs free to move. Her silver-blue skin gleamed under the station's lights. The hard plates at her joints, natural armor that protected her elbows and knees, looked like polished metal. A creature with 8 eyes stepped into the ring between them. It was a Vorik, a species known for fairness in matters of combat. They often served as judges in fighting rings across the galaxy. "The rules," the Vorik announced in a voice that carried across the common hall. "No weapons. No attacks meant to kill. The fight ends when one fighter yields or cannot continue. Do both fighters understand?" "I understand," Venna said. "Yes," Taiho said. Then when I step back, you may begin." The Vorik moved to the edge of the ring and climbed out. The crowd grew quiet. Hundreds of eyes focused on the two figures standing in the ring. Venna dropped into her fighting stance. Her forearms spread wide, too high and too low, ready to strike or grab from any angle. Her legs bent slightly, her weight balanced on the balls of her feet. She was ready to move in any direction instantly. Tejo did not take a stance. He just stood there, hands at his sides, watching her. Venna felt a flash of anger at this insult. Did he think he did not need to defend himself? Did he think she was not worth the effort? "Prepare yourself, human," she said. "I am prepared." Venna attacked. She was fast. All Kelthari were fast, but Venna was faster than most. She had trained her whole life to move like lightning. Her two upper arms struck at Tejo's face, while her two lower arms reached for his body. A perfect combination, impossible to block completely, but Tejo was not there. He had moved. Not jumped back, not run away, just shifted. His body turned slightly, his feet adjusted, and all four of her strikes found empty air. Venna did not hesitate. She followed with more attacks, a storm of punches and grabs and strikes. Her fists moved so fast that normal eyes could barely track them. She aimed for his head, his chest, his arms, his legs. She left no opening, gave him no rest. Tejo moved through her attacks like water flowing around rocks. He did not block. He did not fight back. He just moved, sliding past each strike by the smallest possible distance. A punch that should have crushed his jaw missed by an inch. A grab that should have caught his arm found nothing. The crowd began to murmur. 1 minute passed. Venna kept attacking. Her combinations grew more complex, more unpredictable. She used feints and tricks, trying to fool him into moving the wrong way. Nothing worked. He read every attack before it came. He was always just slightly out of reach. 2 minutes passed. Venna was breathing harder now. She was not tired, not yet, but she was using a lot of energy. Fighting this hard for this long, without landing a single hit, was draining. Tejo was not breathing hard at all. He had barely moved, really. Just small shifts, tiny adjustments. He had not traveled more than a few feet from where he started. He was letting her chase him around the ring while he waited. Waited for what? Venna roared and launched her fastest attack yet. All four arms striking together, aimed at his center. No one could dodge this. No one could be fast enough. Tejo dropped. He did not fall or stumble. He simply dropped his entire body straight down, bending his knees, letting her attacks pass over his head. And as he dropped, he moved forward. Suddenly he was inside her reach, too close for her long arms to be useful. His elbow came up, hard and fast, and hit her in the chest. The impact was incredible. Venna had been hit before, many times, by warriors bigger and stronger than this human. None of them had hit like this. It was like being struck by a machine, precise and powerful. She felt the shock travel through her whole body. She staggered back, gasping. The crowd went silent. Tejo did not give her time to recover. He moved forward, staying close, inside her guard. His hands found targets she did not even know were vulnerable. A strike to the joint where two of her arms connected to her shoulder. A punch to the nerve cluster on her side. A palm strike to the soft tissue under her chin. Each hit was small, but devastating. Venna felt her left arms go numb. She felt her legs weaken. She tried to grab him, to use her forearms to trap him, but he was too close and moving too fast. Every time she reached for him, he was somewhere else. She swung wildly with her right upper arm. Tejo caught the swing, guided it past him, and stepped behind her. Before she could turn, he kicked the back of her knee. Venna went down. One knee hit the floor of the ring with a heavy thud. She tried to rise, but Tejo was already on her. His arm wrapped around her throat from behind. Not choking, not yet, but the threat was clear. His other hand grabbed her upper right arm and twisted it back at an angle that sent pain shooting through her shoulder. "Yield," he said quietly. His voice was calm. He was not even breathing hard. Venna struggled. She was stronger than him. She knew she was. She should be able to break his hold. She threw her weight sideways, trying to shake him off. The arm around her throat tightened slightly. The pain in her shoulder increased. She could feel that if she kept struggling, something would break. Either she would choke, or her arm would come out of its socket. "Yield," he said again. The common hall was completely silent. Hundreds of beings watched without making a sound. Even Rothan, standing at the edge of the ring, could not speak. Venna had not lost a fight in 15 years. She had defeated warriors from 20 different species. She had trained champions, led armies, earned every honor her people could give, and now she was on her knees. Held helpless by a human half her size, she could feel the pressure on her throat. She could feel her arm being bent in a way it should not bend. She could feel her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. She tapped the floor with her free hand. Once, twice, 3 times. The signal of surrender. Taiho released her immediately. He stepped back, giving her space. His face was still calm, showing nothing. Venna stayed on her knees for a moment, breathing hard. Her whole body was shaking. Not from exhaustion, from something else. Something she had not felt in a very long time. Shock, disbelief. And underneath those, hidden but real fear, she made herself stand. Her legs were weak, but they held her. She turned to face the human. He stood there waiting. He had not moved to celebrate or boast. He was not even looking at the crowd. He was looking at her. "The human wins," the Voric judge announced. Its voice sounded strange in the silence. The crowd exploded into noise. Some cheered, some groaned, some shouted in languages Venna did not understand. Credits and goods changed hands as bets were settled. Recording devices were lowered as beings saved the footage to share with others. Venna barely heard any of it. She was still looking at Taiho. He had destroyed her completely. She realized now that she had never had a chance. From the first moment, he had been in control. He had let her attack, let her tire herself out, then taken her apart with brutal efficiency. The stories about humans were true. All of them. Maybe they were not even exaggerated. Taiho picked up his jacket from the barrier and put it back on. He looked at Venna one more time. "No grudges," he said. That was the agreement. Then he walked out of the ring and disappeared into the crowd. Venna stood alone in the ring, surrounded by the noise of hundreds of beings, feeling more lost than she had ever felt in her life. The medical bay on Horizon's Edge was clean and bright. Medical machines hummed softly as they scanned Venna's body for injuries. A doctor with 4 arms and scales the color of copper moved around her, checking readings and pressing buttons.
"Oh, no serious damage," the doctor said.
"Bruising to the chest and side? Minor strain in your shoulder joint? Some swelling in the nerve clusters he struck. You will be sore for a few days, but everything will heal." Venna nodded, but said nothing. She sat on the medical table, staring at the wall. Her mind kept replaying the fight. Every moment, every movement, she had been so confident, so sure of her victory, and the human had taken her apart like she was nothing. The door to the medical bay opened. Rothan entered, his young face troubled. He stopped a few feet away from Venna and stood there, uncertain. "Teacher," he said quietly, "how do you feel?" "I have been better." Rothan looked at the floor. "I should apologize. I pushed him. I started this. If I had not touched him, maybe the fight would not have happened." "No." Venna shook her head. "I challenged him. The fight was my choice. You did nothing wrong. But he beat you. A human beat you." Rothan's voice mixed confusion with anger. "How is that possible? You are the greatest fighter I have ever seen. He is small. He has no claws, no armor, nothing special. How did he win?" "I do not know," the words hurt to say. Venna had taught combat for decades. She understood fighting better than almost anyone alive. But what the human had done, she could not explain it. He was not stronger than her. She was certain of that. When she had felt his grip, it was firm, but not crushing. A Kelthari child could match his raw strength. He was not faster than her. During the fight, she had thrown attacks that would have hit any normal opponent. Her speed was legendary. He had not moved faster than her attacks. He had simply moved before them, as if he knew what she was going to do before she did it. And when he finally attacked, his strikes had been perfect. Every one had hit exactly where it would cause the most damage. Not random violence, but precise destruction. Where is he now? Venna asked. The human? I do not know. He left after the fight. Some people tried to talk to him, ask him questions, but he ignored them and walked away. Venna nodded slowly. That fit what she had seen of him. He had not wanted attention. He had not wanted the fight at all. She had forced him into it, and he had punished her for that. Hours passed. Venna left the medical bay and returned to her quarters. She tried to rest, but sleep would not come. She kept thinking about the human. Finally, she got up and left her quarters. She needed to find him. She needed answers. The station was quieter now. The day cycle was ending, and many beings had returned to their ships or rooms to sleep. Venna walked through nearly empty corridors. Checking the places where a cargo pilot might go, she found him on the observation deck. It was a large room with curved windows that looked out into space. Stars filled the darkness, countless points of light stretching into forever. A few beings sat on benches here and there. The deck was mostly empty. Tejo stood near the window, looking out at the stars. His hands were clasped behind his back. He did not turn when Venna approached, but she knew he had heard her. I thought we agreed no more bothering, he said. This is not a challenge. Venna stopped a few feet away from him. I just have questions, okay? How did you beat me? Tejo was quiet for a moment. Then he turned to face her. His eyes were the same as before, calm and steady. But something in them was less cold now. Do you really want to know? Yes. He looked back at the stars. Humans are weak. You were right about that. We are small. We have no claws. Our skin is soft. Compared to most species, we are fragile. Then how? Venna moved closer. I am faster than you. I am stronger. I have 4 arms and armor on my joints. By every measure, I should have one. You should have. But you did not. Tejo paused. Do you know what humans are, in terms of evolution? What kind of predators we were on our home world? Predators. Venna had not thought of humans as predators at all. We are persistence predators. Do you know what that means? Venna shook her head. On Earth, our planet, there were animals that were faster than us, stronger than us, better hunters in every way. But humans survived because we could do something those animals could not. We could keep going. He turned to face her fully now. A human can chase prey across continents. Not quickly, but steadily. We sweat to cool our bodies, so we do not overheat. We can run for days without stopping. Our ancestors would chase an animal until it collapsed from exhaustion, and then they would kill it. Venna listened, not understanding yet. That is how humans fight. We do not win in the first minute. We do not win by being stronger or faster. We wait, we endure. We let our enemy tire themselves out, make mistakes, grow frustrated, and then we strike. You let me attack you, Venna said slowly. You let me swing and miss for 3 minutes. You were wasting energy. Every attack you made was hard and fast, designed to end the fight quickly. But I was not there to be hit. So you were just throwing power into empty air? And you were waiting. I was waiting. Watching your patterns. Learning how you move. Figuring out where your weaknesses were, shrugged. By the time I hit you, I knew exactly where to strike. Venna felt cold. It was a strange feeling for a Kelthari. Her species came from a hot world. Cold was not something they experienced often, but standing here, listening to this human explained how he had taken her apart, she felt cold in a way that had nothing to do with temperature. You were never in danger, she said. The whole fight, you were never worried. No, even when you refused to fight, even when my student pushed you, you were not afraid. No, why not? Tejo was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. I was a soldier once. A long time ago. I fought in a war that lasted 3 years. I saw things that would give you nightmares. I did things I tried not to remember. He looked at his scarred hands. After the war ended, I swore I would never fight again unless I had no choice. But today you had a choice. You could have walked away. Could I? He looked at her. Your student put his hands on me. He had the whole crowd watching. If I had walked away, they would have thought all humans were cowards. They would have pushed us, tested us, challenged us wherever we went. So you fought for your species. I fought so other humans would not have to. So that the next human who comes through this station can eat in peace without being challenged by warriors looking for easy victories. Venna was silent for a long time. She had never thought of it that way. Fighting for her was always personal. Honor and pride and glory. She had never fought to protect others who were not even present. There is one more thing I do not understand, she said finally. You held back. I felt it. At the end, when you had me trapped, you could have hurt me much worse. But you did not. Tai-Ho nodded. You challenged me to prove humans are weak. I only needed to prove we are not. I did not need to break your bones or damage your body. That would have been cruel. Most warriors would have made an example of me. I am not most warriors. He turned back to the window. And you are not my enemy. You were curious, prideful, maybe, but not evil. There was no reason to hurt you beyond what was necessary. Venna stood beside him looking out at the stars. She thought about what he had said, about persistence, about endurance, about choosing mercy even in victory. She had lived for 112 years. She had fought in battles across a dozen worlds. She had thought she understood combat better than any being alive. But standing here, next to this small, soft, scarred human, she realized she had much to learn. Park Tai-Ho, she said. He looked at her. I owe you an apology. Not for the challenge. Among my people, challenges are how we measure ourselves. But for the things I said before. Calling humans weak, calling your stories lies, you were wrong. Yes, I was wrong. Tai-Ho nodded, accepting this. Then we have no problem with each other. They stood in silence for a while, two warriors from different worlds, watching the stars turn slowly outside the window. Finally, Venna spoke again. Will you teach me? Tai-Ho looked surprised for the first time since she had met him. Teach you what? How to fight like a human. How to wait. How to read opponents the way you read me. He was quiet for a long time. When he answered, his voice was thoughtful. I am leaving in 2 days. My ship will be repaired by then. Then you have 2 days to teach me something. Tai-Ho looked at her. Then, slowly, the corner of his mouth turned up in something that was almost a smile. You are very stubborn. That is a Kelthari trait, apparently. Humans are not the only ones who do not give up. He turned to face her fully. Fine, I will teach you what I can, but not here. Meet me in the training room tomorrow morning, and leave your pride at the door. What I teach will make you feel like a beginner again. Venna nodded. I will be there. Tai-Ho walked past her toward the exit. At the door, he stopped and looked back. One more thing? Yes. Tell your student that he still owes me an apology. Then he was gone. Leaving Venna alone with the stars and more questions than answers. 2 days passed quickly. Venna, most of that time with Tai-Ho in the training room. True to his word, he taught her things that made her feel like a complete beginner. How to breathe during combat, how to conserve energy, how to read the tiny movements that came before an attack. She had been fighting for nearly a century, but she had never thought about these things the way he explained them. Combat is not about strength, Tai-Ho told her. It is about understanding. If you understand your opponent, you have already won. Rothan came to watch on the second day. He stood at the edge of the training room, arms crossed, his face a mixture of curiosity and lingering shame. True to his promise, he had apologized to Tai-Ho when they first met that morning. The words had been stiff and formal, but Tai-Ho had accepted them with a simple nod. Now, Rothan watched as his teacher, the greatest warrior he had ever known, struggled to perform exercises that looked simple but proved impossibly difficult. You were thinking too much, Taiho said, as Venna failed to counter a slow practice strike for the 5th time. Your body knows what to do. Let it move. On Kelthari, we train the mind to control the body, is one way. But sometimes the mind is too slow. Sometimes you need to let the body act and let the mind catch up afterward. Venna tried again. This time, her body moved before she could think about it. She slipped past Taiho's practice strike and tapped his shoulder, a gentle contact that would have been a finishing blow in a real fight. Better, Taiho said. Much better. That night, Venna went to her quarters and began researching humans. She used the station's data network to access records, histories, studies, anything she could find about this strange small species. What she found kept her awake all night. Humans had nearly destroyed themselves, not once, but many times. They had built weapons that could burn their entire world to ash. They had wars over ideas, beliefs, pieces of colored cloth they called flags. They had killed each other in numbers so large that Venna's mind could not truly grasp them, and yet they survived. Every time they fell, they got back up. Every disaster made them stronger. Every war taught them something new. She read about human soldiers who fought for days without sleep, human doctors who worked until they collapsed, saving others, human explorers who traveled into the unknown with no guarantee of survival, human parents who sacrificed everything for their children. She read about something called the human spirit and realized that no translation could capture what it was, truly meant. By morning, Venna understood something she had not understood before. Humans were not dangerous because they were strong. They were not dangerous because they were fast or clever or well-armed. They were dangerous because they never, ever stopped. No matter what happened, no matter how bad things got, they kept going. That was what she had felt in the ring. Not just skill or technique, but an endless, tireless will that would not accept defeat. Taiho had not beaten her because he was better. He had beaten her because he simply refused to lose. The day of Taiho's departure came. His ship was repaired, his cargo secured. There was nothing keeping him on the station anymore. Venna met him at the docking bay. Rothan came too, standing a respectful distance behind his teacher. Taiho's ship was small and old, its hull marked with scratches and patches from years of travel. It looked tired but reliable. Like its owner, you were leaving, Venna said. I have cargo to deliver. People waiting for me, I know. She reached into a pouch at her side and pulled out a small object. It was a mark, a badge worn by Kelthari warriors who had earned respect through combat. Her personal mark, given to her by her own teacher a lifetime ago. I want you to have this. Taiho looked at the mark but did not take it. That looks important. It is given to those we recognize as true warriors. Not because of strength or speed, but because of honor. She held it out to him. You have shown me more about combat in 2 days than I learned in decades. You defeated me without hatred and taught me without arrogance. Among my people, that is the highest form of warrior. Taiho was quiet for a moment. Then he reached out and took the mark. He held it carefully, looking at the symbols carved into its surface. Thank you, he said. I will keep it safe. I have one more request. Yes. Venna pulled out a small data chip. This is my contact information. When you travel to new places, send me messages. Tell me what you see. Tell me about the humans you meet and the things they do. Taiho took the chip and put it in his pocket. Why? Because I want to keep learning. About your species. About the way you think and fight and live. She paused. I was wrong about humans. I do not want to be wrong again. Taiho nodded slowly. Okay. I will send messages when I can. Started to turn toward his ship, then stopped. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small chip of his own. This is for you, he said, handing it to Venna. Records of human combat training. Not just fighting, but the philosophy behind it. How we teach our children to protect themselves. How our soldiers learn to survive. Venna took the chip. Why are you giving me this? Because you asked to understand us. This will help. He paused. Also because I think you will use it well. The Kelthari are proud warriors, but pride can make you blind. Maybe if you learn from us, you can teach others what you learn. Venna held the chip tightly. I will study this carefully. Good Taiho turned to look at Rothan. And you. Train hard. Listen to your teacher. She has much to teach you, Rothan straightened up. I will. Thank you for the lesson you gave us. What lesson was that? Never underestimate anyone. Not by their size, their appearance, or their reputation. Taiho smiled slightly. It was the first real smile Venna had seen from him. Good. You learned something after all? He walked up the ramp into his ship. At the top, he turned back one final time. Venna Solrath. It was interesting meeting you. Park Taiho, the same. The ramp closed. Minutes later, the ship's engines hummed to life. Docking clamps released. The quiet wind floated out of the bay into the darkness of space. Venna watched until it was just another point of light among the stars. Then she turned to Rothan. Teacher. He asked, what did you learn from all this? Venna looked at the chip in her hand, then at the mark that Taiho now carried, then at the stars where his ship had disappeared. The galaxy has been treating humans like harmless scavengers, she said slowly. Small creatures wandering through predator territory. We looked at them and saw weakness. We laughed at their soft skin and their lack of claws. She shook her head. We were wrong. Humans are not scavengers. They are not prey. They are not weak things that got lucky. She turned to face Rothan directly. They are the thing that other apex predators learned to fear. And we should remember that. Rothan was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, what will you do now? Venna started walking back toward the training rooms. I will study what he gave me. I will learn everything I can about humans and how they fight. And then I will teach it to my students. All of them. Why? She stopped and looked back at him. Because someday, the Kelthari may need to fight beside humans instead of against them. And when that day comes, I want us to be worthy allies. She walked on, leaving Rothan to follow. Far away. On the bridge of the quiet wind, Taiho set a course for his next destination. His ship's simple AI, a program named Bora, spoke through the speakers. The repairs are complete. All systems are functioning normally. Did you enjoy your visit to Horizon's Edge? Taiho thought about the question. He thought about the challenge, the fight, the long conversations in the training room. He thought about Venna's pride, slowly changing to respect. He thought about Rothan's apology and the way the young warrior had watched him with new eyes. It was fine, he said finally. Let us hope the next stop is quieter. You often say that. It rarely turns out to be true. Taiho smiled slightly. I know. The quiet wind jumped too faster than light speed and vanished into the stars. Behind him, on a station spinning in the void between worlds, a Kelthari warrior began teaching her students something new. Never underestimate a human. Not because they are strong. Not because they are fast. Not because they have claws or armor or weapons, but because they never ever stop. No matter what the galaxy throws at them, no matter how many times they fall, they get back up and keep going. They chase their prey across continents. They fight wars that last generations. They build and rebuild and refuse to accept defeat. They are small. They are soft. They are fragile. And they are the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The students listened. The lessons began. And somewhere in the stars, a quiet human pilot flew on to his next adventure. Carrying a Kelthari warrior's mark in his pocket and the knowledge that he had changed something important. One fight. One lesson. One moment of understanding. That was all it took. The galaxy would never look at humans the same way again.